Good morrow, Kate, for that is your name, I hear.
Well, you have heard, but something hard of hearing. They call me Catherine, that you talk of me.
You lie, in faith, for you are called Plain Kate, and Bonny Kate, and sometimes Kate the Cursed. Welcome back to An Each Retelling, the podcast where we explore all the ways old tales are made new. I'm your host, Jasmine Garcia, and I am sorry to report this may be our last episode, because I think my guests are ready to kill me.
Hi, I'm River, and I can't not say that, but the FBI, if you are listening, is several countries and states away, so I think we're good.
Talk not to me. I will go sit and weep till I can find occasion of revenge.
Jesus Christ, Sam!
That's a direct quote from the play. It's relevant.
I know it is. It is relevant, but Jesus Christ, you're acting like I wrote it. I didn't write this.
No, we could have got our entire lives without no knowledge that this book exists, and yet
God,
here
you
we
guys
are.
are so dramatic, and that's coming from me.
We're theater kids, Jasmine!
All three of us! And I have a deep personal connection to this play that we will get into. So yeah, this book made me mad.
Oh, by the way, Jasmine, for your sake, I have a glass here that's relatively clean. I'll start the unofficial jar for how many times we mentioned the thing we can't talk about because of struck work.
Thank you very much.
So you have it count by the end of podcast.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
We're going to be using colored pens.
Excellent. Yes, so to provide further context for our listeners, we are covering the book If I'm Being Honest, which is a very loose, modernized retelling of Taming of the Shrew. Listen. They hated this. I only hated the ending. We will delve further into that. But first, oh boy, let's talk Taming of the Shrew. What is our connection to that?
So, my connection to Taming of the Shrew is I have never read it. My only connection to it is a thing we can't talk about due to struck work. And so, the only thing I know about Taming of the Shrew is in high school, my, second year of doing theater, my theater teacher at the time was like, okay, we're gonna learn how to do a Shakespearean monologue properly, because you've had to read them for English. Now we're going to show you how to do them on stage. So she taught us all about how to, scan a monologue, and she had all of us, pick one specifically. I think I picked one of Catherine's.
Was it the I am ashamed that women are so simple one? Because I have a backstory with that.
No, it's the no shame but mine, I must be forced to give my hand opposed against my heart.
Nice.
Because it was the only one that I think I could snark enough through it and actually, hold some dignity about myself. Because that's the thing, is that at the time I was still identifying as mostly femme-coded, and my theater teacher wanted us to stay roughly within our gender, with some mild bending. So I had to pick a female character, and I was like, well, my options are not great. I don't think I can do Juliet. I definitely probably couldn't have done Cleopatra.
You didn't aim for, Rosalind or Viola or one of the cross-dressers?
Maybe, but I didn't think that far ahead. So I was like...
Rosalind's And Why I Pray You is a classic. It used to be one of my go-tos.
Yeah. The other thing is that, I did it once, officially for class, and I've never done it again. Because I am not good at Shakespeare.
Does that mean it's my turn
now?
Okay, so if we want to roll it back to 4th or 5th grade, I got this book that was the basis for Shakespeare's stories. And one of the stories included in there was this story that was supposedly the taming of the shrew. And in that story, the Petruchio character does literally kill her with kindness. He's not an abusive prick. But the thing is, he lives next door to a well where there's a demon. And so the demon and the shrew engage in a prank warfare until finally at the end the wife decides, okay, fine, my husband's right, so I'm going to literally kill the water demon with kindness. What? And she does that, and the water demon explodes.
Where's my monster fucking retelling of that?
It's not monster fucking. No fucking of monster occurs.
For listeners who are not familiar with Taming of the Shrew, no, that is not how it goes.
So then we move into high school. High school is where I see the thing that we cannot talk about because it is struck work, but it's also where, shout out to Mr. John Minigan, my high school drama teacher slash English teacher slash Shakespeare teacher, he talks to us about the play, because not everybody in his senior year Shakespeare class reads the play, but he says that he's fond of Taming of the Shrew, specifically because he feels Catherine and Petruchio are the only couple in Shakespeare that work because they work all their issues out in the play. I have opinions about why I disagree, but he has an MFA in playwriting, he's done the work, he's Shakespeare obsessed.
Sure.
He was an amazing teacher. I'm very fond of him.
Opinions are like assholes, everyone's got one.
Yeah.
Hang on.
So,
break for a second. Briefly. You had to read Taming in high school?
I did not have to read Taming in high school. What happened was I took a year-long Shakespeare course, and we covered a good amount of the plays that we hadn't already done, because we'd already done Midsummer, we'd already done Romeo and Juliet, we'd already done the Scottish play, because those were annual things for freshman, junior, senior year, etc. But the Shakespeare course... Mm-hmm. This was a course just about Shakespeare. But as we got towards the end of the semester, it's like, okay, rather than everybody doing all the plays, what we're going to do is I'm going to break you into groups or solos, and everybody reads one play and does like a report on it. So at the time, I was super into Coriolanus because Tom Hiddleston was doing it on stage.
Why not?
I spent a lot of time looking at that photo of him showering covered in blood.
Listen, there's nothing sexier than a hot man drenched in blood.
There are a few things better. You're right. God, we're fucked up.
But I can't remember who did the Taming of the Shrew presentation. We might not have even had a Taming of the Shrew presentation because nobody wanted to touch it. Me. But this is where we get into the heavy part. So, 2016, I'm a member of Commonwealth Shakespeare Company's apprentice program. This is a training program for young college-age actors. We do 2 plays free for people around the greater Boston area. We work as audience ambassadors to Boston's free Shakespeare on the Common, all that good stuff. And one of the things we did was a lot of scene work and a lot of green shows to kind of get people into the swing of it. And that year we were doing Love's Labour's Lost. So what my partner Nate and I did was we came up with a scenario to kind of get people into understanding Love's Labour's Lost by framing it in terms of romantic comedy and witty banter. And because we were in our scene work classes assigned Catherine and Petruchio's first meeting, the one where you can look it up on YouTube, there's a public theater performance with Raul Julia and Meryl Streep.
Oh, I've seen that
scene.
Yes.
It's awesome. Yeah, so we took a small section of that and we made it like flirty and sassy. We even referenced the thing we cannot talk about. And then we did a little bit of Love's Labour's Lost. Like, see, it's the same. It's witty banter. It's flirting. It's fun.
Editor Jasmine here. Is it though?
But like I said, that was summer of 2016. Fall of 2016 happens. And I'm in my feelings. Oh, I should mention, Commonwealth Shakespeare Company, the 2 shows the apprentices did that year, we did Cymbeline and Measure for Measure, which also have very heavy feminist issues when you look at them through a modern lens. So I've got those 3 plays. Fall of 2016, I've got those 3 plays cooking in my brain. And Oberlin College, where I was doing my undergrad, has this thing called winter term, where you take the month of January and you do a project. And so I decided that my project was going to be taking my feelings and writing a play. I wrote that play. It's a 1-act play. The draft that I turned in 2017, January of that year, was almost entirely in iambic pentameter. I'm working on updating a new version of it to be pretty much entirely in iambic pentameter. The original version was called Women of Will. I have updated it to A Woman's Will, but it is a meta-theatrical engagement with feminist themes in Shakespeare's text following Hero from Much Ado About Nothing, Isabella from Measure for Measure, Catherine from Taming of the Shrew, Imogen from Cymbeline, and Lavinia from Titus Andronicus, with my self-insert meta-author being Rosalind from As You Like It.
Let it be known, I am screaming, fuck yes, fuck yes, fuck yes. Can we do a table read when you're done?
I am working on it. We need to find somebody who can do ASL because I've been rewriting Lavinia a lot to account for disability inclusion and representation.
More than fair. Although I'm not sure how we're going to make that work.
Make a Patreon bonus.
But I want to highlight, I'm very proud of the Catherine section that I wrote, and I wrote a speech. I am ashamed that women are so simple to allow men the mastery of their fate. when they have all they need to take it back and claim it as their own, to break their chains that they may be their own lords instead of men. 'Tis only for that they teach us we are lesser that we think it, and comply with what they wish. 'Tis said my husband killed me with kindness, but that kindness was one of acts so cruel I would not wish them for my greatest foe, e'en as he did inflict them on me himself. My belly starved, my sleep denied, my eyes stained red and caked with salt for his kindness. There is but one duty we owe to men, to say to them we'll not be trod upon by their feet, unless it be to bite them for daring such vile acts against ourselves. If we from them were made as Scripture says, should it not be that we are stern as they, as fierce, untamed, and dominant? If faith, I know not what we owe them, but that which they foist on us, our begetting and life, which mothers are more owed than fathers are. But what matters that when all of you have without question agreed to be thine own foes? Hence will I take my leave of thee post-haste. I know full well what I'll hear should I stay.
Damn, that's some good shit, Sam. Also, weirdly kind of parallel to a part in this book. I hate to say it, but it's true.
Yeah. Oh, there is one other thing I forgot. My senior year, I also did the Boston Shakespeare competition, and I made it to the top 10 for finalists. So I could have gone to the national one, but I didn't make it past the final round when I did a cold reading, and I had to do a cold reading of Kate's I Am Ashamed That Women Are So Simple speech. And I played it super sarcastic and undermining. Like I said, I didn't make it past that finals round, but you know, I had fun.
That's what's good. I'm proud of you.
And so, Catherine is my problematic baby, and if you touch her, I will have words with you.
That actually explains a lot more about what is happening here, then.
Does it, Jasmine?
Sorry.
Does
I'm
it?
Sorry.
Does
I'm
it?
Sorry.
Sam,
As for me.
Walls.
As for me, so when I went on to study it in college under Professor Wiedebeck, I was like, oh, I have to read this shit. And interestingly, I love Professor Wiedebeck. Beth will tell you we both had been her students. She was great. She was one of those people who thinks, no, she's into it.
Oh.
There are readings of that. I do not agree with them at all.
Yeah,
but
Nike.
see, Sam, you and I kind of dealt with similar things there.
Nike.
Yeah, and also there is like this one short story compilation that I would also love to do at some point where they just kind of do different types of Shakespeare retellings. Basically, they took the Taming of the Shrew, and much like the thing we can't talk about, just like, yep, no, we're just gonna kind of throw out most of this. And they basically made it kind of the same format as the kind of soulmate AUs where you see color for the first time when you meet your soulmate. It's interesting. I don't know, because like, I feel like there's just not enough connection to Taming of the Shrew to have justified making it a retelling of Taming of the Shrew. Because even if you erase all the abusive elements, unless you do it really well, like the thing we can't talk about, you're gonna be invoking its ghost either way. Like, I have very strong feelings about this play. I do not like it. It is one of the few Shakespeares that I will out and out tell people don't even fucking bother.
It sure is a goddamn fucking choice. We should probably talk about the book now, which is also surely a fucking choice. Sam, we've stalled long enough. We have to get this out. We have to exorcise the demons, because if we don't, we're fucked. So, I will open this can of worms, because I've got a little opening speech here that I wrote as part of my notes.
Oh, God.
Go ahead.
Because I was just going to give up... Can I give the
Fine.
premise first,
Go.
please?
Give your base level premise
yes.
before we shred it into a million pieces.
If I'm being honest, it's written by a husband-wife duo who apparently met through their love of Shakespeare. And basically, the premise is, this is actually kind of a meta retelling because it's inspired by the play itself within the text.
Which is a thing they stole from the thing we can't talk about.
Kind of, yes. And this book stars a character named Cameron Bright, your typical high school mean girl at first. You think she's just the typical high school mean girl. And when the guy she likes calls her a bitch, she decides she is going to tame herself. And as I said in the chat, that is a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it works out for them. I am the only one here who thinks it mostly does. Go on with the speech, River.
Alright, so for any Taming of the Shrew retelling to work, you have to some extent be on the side of Catherine, I believe. Or her allegories and thereof, you know, your things we can't talk about. It takes forever and a day to get on Cameron's side. While she is sympathetic, you to some extent want her to say fuck everything and bail from her life and town. Between a flimsy to non-existent support network and an understandable, if annoying, self-reliance streak, Cameron Bright is sympathetic but annoying in a way that only teenagers can be. You want to grip her by the shoulders and say, he will never love you. And you can't tell if you're talking about her father or Andrew.
Unfortunately, it does not help. I'm sure this voice actress is a lovely person in real life, but good God.
Her mic setup sucks.
The mic setup sucks, and her narration is the most snide, stereotypical monologuing you can imagine. Like, I don't even know how someone could stand to hear this for 10 hours.
And see, I was the only one here who did not do the audiobook. I still think that has something to do with this.
I had to do the audiobook because my library did not have a copy of it that was going to be conducive to getting this episode out in a relatively normal
Same here!
I know. I'm not blaming you guys. If anything, you guys saved me from doing the audiobook because a bad narrator is the easiest way to turn me off of one.
To out my own interests for a second, I have heard better shit from ASMR artists cowering under their desks under a comforter and reading shit written by Reddit scriptwriters than this setup. The setup was terrible. I'm so sorry, lady.
You have our utmost sympathies. We wish you better luck in your career.
Wish you could make enough money to afford better equipment, but you're not making enough money because I assume that this industry is in hell. Like all industries.
Hot labor summer is turning into cool labor autumn.
Love it for them. But
get your money.
Here are my three big fucking issues. Sure. One, you know that for the sake of how the story is structured, Cameron is going to eventually become some form of better. She is going to have to grow and change for the sake of this fucking narrative. It takes her forever and a fucking day to get there, because this book is 20 chapters too long.
It's so long.
That is one thing I will agree on.
Like, it's 46 chapters, it's 20 chapters too long.
That I can agree with.
It's like somebody was posting a fanfic, and the fanfic was getting really good hits, so they just decided, I can stretch this out.
Yeah, I will grant you that. This probably does take a little bit too long.
I have read fanfiction about the Tudor dynasty that has measured over 150 chapters. It still feels shorter than this.
Number two, I have discovered that I do not like viewing things of my interest like Dungeons and Dragons, cosplay, anime, K-dramas, and everything else that is thinly veiled and revealed in this book, from an outsider's perspective, because I don't know how to express to you without sounding like a complete and utter wimp, that reading Cameron, like, at first derisively view these things that I don't quite hold sacred, because I try not to hold anything sacred these days, because I'm under the belief that everything is going to eventually disappoint me for one reason or another. Terrible way to live life, but this is how I live my life. But having Cameron derisively view the things that give me any ounce of serotonin in the year of our Lord 2023, this book is written in 2019. But having her view it so derisively and so like it's some sort of foreign species felt like every worst nightmare I've ever had come true. Like, I don't know if it's the former bullied child in me, or if it's the former nerd in me who would have also loved to have sat in a silent classroom and just done my own bullshit and not have been bothered for several hours. I don't know if it was any of that, but it was definitely, like, to some level, like, oh, there are people out there who view my interests like this. I thought we'd gotten rid of this mindset in 2011 when Game of Thrones got big. And to have that not be the case even in a fictional setting felt not stellar. Not stellar, if I'm gonna say.
I will say, that was one of the things I was just like, about, because I was just like, you guys do realize nerd culture is basically mainstream right now, right, authors? Like,
yeah, and like, they try to cover for it with the fact that Cameron, for some reason they gave Cameron the fictional crush on Benedict Cumberbatch of all actors.
Exactly, it doesn't really work. I know why they did it though. I know why they did it though.
Deeply funny.
It's foreshadowing. It's foreshadowing.
It's barely, but it's deeply amusing. Benedict Cumberbatch, what a man.
It'll never not be funny, guys. Sorry.
She should have been with Paige.
Yes.
She had such better chemistry with Paige. The compulsory heterosexuality, I'm not here for it.
You know what? I do have to wonder if that is because I feel like having to build her relationship with Brendan took a lot longer than it would have been if they had just done Paige. Like, at this point, in, again, the year of our Lord 2023, compulsory heterosexuality almost always needlessly lengthens stories.
Also, the other thing is that, like, it's pointed out very early on that this doesn't matter. Because they're all in high school. Everyone is a fucking child. But, for optics' sake, it is pointed out that Brendan is a junior, I believe. Yeah, Brendan's a junior. And Cameron and the rest of her friend circle are seniors. Which would make Paige also a senior. Which would make that, like, for the sake of the tensile strength of their relationship, having her date Paige would make it last longer in the long run. Like, I don't think it'd make it past, like, them going to college. But it would make
especially because Paige was, like, looking at East Coast schools.
Yeah, but like, for the sake of, like, the tensile strength for the rest of the semester and, like, the following, maybe I give them up until about winter break. The tensile strength would have held a lot better than it would have held for fucking Brandon and Cameron. And, like, here's the funniest thing about this. I actually had a geography of how and where this book was set up, because I went to LA in July, and some of the places they mentioned I actually had to go visit as part of summer abroad. I was doing it through a Canadian university. Funniest thing about it is I think I know exactly which high school the authors are taking their inspiration from. I can't guarantee it, and I don't actually know the name of the high school, but there is a high school, I think it is out near Fairfax, but it hosts a weekend thrift shop swap meet thing. You pay like $10 to get in, and it's this massive, like, covers the school grounds thrift shop where various vendors bring their goods and, like, set up in the parking lot and in the courtyards of the school, and it's all done in that, like, late Spanish colonial, the Meso-colonial style.
The mission.
Yeah, the mission style. And so, when she was describing, like, what her high school looked like, I'm like, I think I know, like, if these authors live in LA, I think I know exactly which high school they took inspiration from, and I thought that was incredibly funny.
That kind of kicks ass, I'm not gonna lie.
Or, like, they'd mention, you know, like, they were, like, on Sunset, or they were mentioning, like, the traffic on Sunset, and where I was staying was an Emerson College, like, offshoot branch on Sunset, and they'd mention the traffic, and I'm like, yeah, no, traffic around there is hellacious. Like, it took me and my friend, like,
I mean, it's
it took
LA.
me and my friend, like, 10 minutes to get, or like 20 minutes to get from, like, where I was to the local McDonald's, like a quarter mile, like not even a mile up the road.
Dear God.
Yeah, yeah. Don't drive in LA. No one likes driving in LA. Every time Cameron complained about traffic in LA, I'm like, you are correct, objectively. That is the only thing you are objectively correct about. Except for Andrew, who is the only black character, and I'm not going to talk about the optics of that.
I have things to say about it.
Put a pin in it. Oh, God. Okay.
Yes.
What else do I have in my fucking notes?
We should back up and talk about, like, the three
general
the
synopsis
three big things that Cameron has going on her life.
Yeah.
So,
sure.
thing
Let's
one...
give this interview some structure after I've fucking...
Yeah, like I said, let's try to summarize it.
Thing one is that she has a terrible relationship with her parents. Her dad is in Philadelphia. She's in LA with her mom. Her dad's like a big business dude who basically just exists to write child support checks. Her mom is a failed actress who clearly is dealing with some depression and executive dysfunction.
Like, I'm not in the business of diagnosing fictional characters, but she distinctly read as bipolar.
She auditions, doesn't get stuff, she doesn't want to teach acting, she doesn't want to go to work. It's not a good situation, and so Cameron has two extremes on the parental spectrum who are both pushing her to be this overachieving, self-sufficient, type A narcissist.
Like I mentioned,
Pretty
her
much.
self-reliance streak, once you get her background, is understandable, but it's annoying in the way that only teenagers can be.
Yeah.
See, for me, maybe it's just because I have a very strong maternal instinct. It just made me want to protect her even more. Which I think, River, you saw in my...
It's like the first thing that this book does to garner sympathy for Cameron. It is like, Cameron has been an asshole. And you're like, okay, book's got to sympathize her at this point. Otherwise, we're not sticking around for the remainder of this fucking book. And it comes swinging out of the gate with this. And I'm like, we don't even get, like, a build-up of, like, anything else. And no, we're just gonna straight into fucking parenting issues? Alright, let's fucking go.
Okay.
And also, again, I'm not in the business of diagnosing fictional characters, but there are also aspects of Cameron where I'm like, you might have OCD, girly. Everyone in this book should be seeing a fucking therapist. Next question.
Yeah.
Correct.
So next part is that Cameron, this kind of ties into the daddy issues, but Cameron really wants to go to UPenn to Wharton Business School. She wants to work for her dad's company. She wants to prove to daddy that he should be in her life and that he should love her. But she likes doing web design type things. She likes taking photographs and designing websites and picking out fonts and stuff like that. And so I clocked it really early on. I'm like, oh my god, you don't actually want to do economics. Like, girl.
Yeah, obviously.
And
Yeah,
then...
no, that's the...
It's almost like you've read a book before.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was why was I feeling so wrong. That's like my, your bet on it, your get your head in the
Struck!
game.
Struck!
Struck.
It's in the cup.
Pen. I'm gonna owe the
Entertainment Community Fund.
owe the fund so much.
Was
Yeah,
it
thank
is
you.
it-
I'm gonna
What,
owe
you
them
said
so much.
25 a reference? We're at 4 pence.
$1 reference.
Okay, so then the part that makes up the bulk of the book is that, yeah, she is an alpha bitch at school. She has her 2 besties. So Elle is a makeup YouTuber and Morgan is an actress. Brad? Was that his name? Brad?
Yeah.
Brad.
I
yeah.
kept expecting
He's
him to,
fair.
I kept expecting him to be worse, but he's sort of a doormat, and I'm kind of okay with that.
Big
he's
himbo
just there.
energy.
No, he's
Correct.
not. He's not dumb enough to be a himbo. Because it's very
And he-
clearly just, like, he's part of student government to some extent. He has some form of business training. Like, yeah, he's getting, the white mask treatment. He's not
Okay, that's
dumb. He's just not interested in what the girls are doing. He's just sort of
I don't-
there.
I mean, I don't
He's
think
more of
himbo
a
is
pro
as much
sport.
intelligence as it is a state of mind.
I
Like,
think it's...
if you're
that is
checked
also true.
out, I think you can totally be a himbo. But
I think
anyway...
he's more of a trophy boyfriend than a himbo.
Okay, fair. But anyway, that's her mean people clique. Then there's Andrew, who starts out as her designated love interest because they're both athletic and their moms get together to watch, like, reality romance shows and stuff, and they do homework together.
Coded bachelor.
And can I just say, a lot of things about Andrew, actually, but first off, this kind of ties into the fact that we all agree that she probably should have gotten with Paige. The way she decided she's going to try to pursue him really does read as queer girls, just like, oh god, I need a crush.
Yeah, I mean...
Yeah.
But it's not...
Because part of the
but it's
thing
not
is,
ready
the
to
last
admit-
guy Cameron dated was Grant, and she broke up him and Hannah to do that.
Yeah, that is true too. And she even acknowledges she doesn't even really know why she did it.
Again, shitty in the way that only teenagers can be truly shitty.
Yeah.
Yeah, but also, if they had gone the Paige and Cameron route, it would almost have made sense. Question mark?
Yeah.
And secondly, are you aware of Mouse Abolition on TikTok, rather? Mouse Abolition, they were a film student. They have since left. They're actually a middle school librarian now. But basically, they do a lot of discussing film, particularly as a mixed-race black femme-presenting person. And one of the things they've talked about, especially recently, is how black love interests are treated in rom-coms, basically.
Oh.
And what's interesting about Andrew is he kind of fits to a certain extent.
I definitely think the authors were picturing Jordan Fisher when they pictured Andrew.
Oh, I could see it. But basically, interestingly, he kind of fits a lot of traits of how disposable black girlfriend are often treated in rom-coms.
Oof.
In that they tend to push their love interest into the character arc that leads them to their true love. And is that not basically what Andrew does?
Oh my god.
And considering how he is one of the very, very few people of color in this story, I don't love it either.
No, Elle is technically, because Elle's mixed?
She's Asian, I can't remember which...
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying, one of the few.
But also, like, Paige and Brendan, they're Jewish, aren't they? Isn't their last name Rosenbaum?
Yes, it's never explicitly stated on page.
Yeah.
They're described
you
in ways that
can-
make
you
me think they're
can
probably
possibly
meant to be
Glean that.
at least coded Jewish, and then, God, at the end, she and Andrew get paired off.
Well, yeah,
Of
that's
course,
like,
yeah.
say what you want about that compulsory pairing, but at least it is pseudo-established. It didn't come out of
Yeah.
completely nowhere. I have very low standards when it comes to secondhand pairings in television shows. If at least it's a little bit established, I'm willing to accept it. And by that point, I was so fucking tired with this book.
Exactly. Like, they start building it pretty early on, at the very least. And you can at least see, okay, yeah, no, they clearly share interests. They very much enjoy spending time together. I have no problem with them getting paired off at the end beyond, again, it should have been Paige and Cameron. What especially makes me uncomfortable regarding Andrew is, one, the fact he calls her a bitch, and two, one of the first things we see him do is defend the way Catherine is treated. The only way I can even somewhat justify it is that they were only on Act 2 at that point, so technically the worst hadn't started yet.
I think you're supposed to read his defending of getting mad about Catherine is basically him venting his frustration.
I mean, I think it's him venting his frustration, but it also...
Oh, yeah.
It's awful.
It just reads wrong.
It's just bad.
Especially because they later go on to address it, and he acts like he doesn't know what Cameron's talking about when she brings it up, and, like, she's like, yeah, I fixed myself because of what you said. And he's like, I wasn't talking about you, I was talking about the character. And I don't know, I didn't like that. And
sure, Jan.
It frustrates me to no end that it's specifically mentioned that Cameron is also taking an ethics class that watches episodes of a TV show I cannot bring up because it struck work. But, you know, one of the things that makes this story hard for me to get behind is that these motivations for changing herself are so selfish. Like, she's doing it for personal reasons. First because she wants Andrew to like her, and then because she wants to feel better about herself. I don't think Cameron ever really stops being a narcissist.
I mean, I don't think you ever really can, but I also would argue that even if she started it for the wrong reason, I do think she's at the very least on the right track by the end. For the most part. We will get into my feelings on the ending, because that is the one thing that I am 100% in agreement with you guys. But, so allow me to offer my defenses of this book. Let me make it clear, it's not that I love it. This is far from my favorite book. This isn't even my favorite take on Taming of the Shrew. But I think what kept me on is, again, I really did feel kind of a weird kind of maternal instinct towards Cameron, because whenever a character has a terrible parents, I just want to save them from them. And I'm also kind of a sucker melting or defrosting the Ice Queen trope. That is just something I've always vibed with. I guess it's because in real life I'm well aware that terrible people probably won't change, but for the sake of my sanity, I need to believe it is still possible. Basically, she almost gets with Andrew, but then one of her first interactions with the person that we are shipping her with, in fact.
Doesn't deserve Paige either, but Paige is at least more willing to put up with her bullshit.
And she and Paige spend more time together.
Yes.
They spend more time together. They connect on a more real, tangible level.
They have a friend date.
They do have a friend date where they practically do flirt with each other. I don't object to actual canonship for the most part. Again, we'll get into it. But basically, the very beginning of the story, she almost gets with Andrew, but then Paige comes out sobbing, looking like an utter mess, and she's just like, I told you not to go for that guy, because there's this one guy that's pretty much well known for just, stay away from him. He's awful. And she just rips into her, and that's what leads to Andrew calling her a bitch, which, in fairness, he is not wrong, but that is such a loaded word, and it's one of those things where really the only people I feel like who can get away with it are those who are femme presenting, because we do have a greater understanding of the power of that word than mask presenting ones do, in my opinion.
I feel like if I had a nickel for every plot that got kicked off this way, I'd at least have 2 nickels, but you could put me at a half Nelson and try to get me to name what the other plot was, and I couldn't tell you. But I definitely think that there's another, story that has been set off because a mask-presenting character called a femme-presenting character a bitch. But that's a weak start. I'm not gonna lie. As far as inciting incidents go, it's a little weak.
I mean, I think...
I get it.
I think the real inciting incident has more to do with Paige calling Cameron out, you couldn't be bothered to apologize to me unless there was an audience for the person you actually cared about. Yes. To me, that's the impetus for Cameron to actually put in the work.
That is true, and for the record, that also would have been a really solid start to a love story.
It really would have.
because she's the one who actively calls her out. At first, anyway.
We've barely talked about him, and honestly, I didn't think Brandon was that good of a character.
He was fine.
Like, the fact that we had to cram in another shitty dad to, like, further justify connections, like...
You are a firm believer in the inherent eroticism of shared trauma.
So Brandon, my dear darling. I like Brandon as a side character. As a main love interest, he's not prepared to shoulder that burden.
Yeah, no. And it's further emphasized by, we will get to the ending. We keep building this up.
He's not prepared to shoulder the burden of being a main love interest. He's barely prepared to shoulder the burden of being a decent friend.
Oh, I don't know about that.
Like, here's the thing. Brandon is not quite a golden retriever. He's a little prickly for that. And he's not a Doberman because he's fucking terrifying. But...
No.
Oh my god, he's a Pomeranian.
He's a bit of a Pomeranian, actually.
Oh my god.
Down to the floofy hair and everything.
Oh my god.
He's actually, I think he's more effectively, I think he's an orange cat. There's nothing going on behind those eyes sometimes. Shout out to that fucking Instagram reel that I don't think I understood, but I also think I understood on a deep intrinsic level.
I mean...
But, like I said, Brandon's biggest flaw is he's not prepared to shoulder the burden of love interest. Hot take, I think Brendan may be a-romantic. Or at least demi-romantic.
I think you might be right, but that's something that bugged me about this now that I'm thinking more about. Cameron spends so much time, like, doing stuff for him, learning about his video games, and she spends way more time getting immersed in both his world and Paige's world, and it feels a lot less like they're invested in her in the same way. Like, Paige feels more like it because Paige was the one like, hey, look at this UCLA digital design thing. That looks like it lines up with your interest.
That also loops back around to Cameron and the whole Ice Queen and the whole, like, impenetrable wall of nonsense and Cameron's abject refusal to submit to the mortifying ordeal of being known.
Yes.
Which is why
that is her biggest
should
problem.
not have been a love story at all.
Honestly,
Agreed.
yeah. Or at least it shouldn't have ended with one.
Yeah, if this book had, any other fucking writer or had a script doctor, this story should not have ended in a love story because it's not. Cameron, up until quite literally the end of the book, refuses to do the actual work of submitting to the mortifying ordeal of being known, which is central to stable relationships in any capacity. Hell, again, putting a pin into the whole Cameron and Paige should have ended up together conspiracy board. The only person she submits to the mortifying ordeal of being known and talks about her actual daddy issues with is fucking Paige.
Even though, again, the door was open for her talking about it with Brenton, and she doesn't. At least not that we see on the page. And yeah, if this was to be a love story, it's a love story with herself.
Yeah, like, first of all, fucking romance is absolute bullshit when you're a teenager, because hormones are fucking stupid, and you have no context for it. That's the other thing. Neither of these characters have contexts for how functioning relationships should work, because Cameron sure as fuck doesn't know what a functioning relationship works. It's implied that her mother doesn't date, and her father is an absolute fucking dickweed.
We are underselling how much of a dickweed he is.
He's a fucking
I want him thrown into the sun.
I'm not entirely convinced. This man definitely was on, like, the Panama Papers or the Epstein logs.
Oh,
wouldn't surprise me.
Oh, absolutely. He was also friends with a fascist Tangerine, or at least pretended to be in public. But no, that's the thing, is that, like, first of all these characters are fucking high schoolers, so they have absolutely no context for how anything should work, because they are all hormone, spur-of-the-moment decisions. And Cameron has no model about how relationships should function, even on a fictional level. Because I think, like, the one thing she mentions that she has seen is Struck Work number 312. And that sure doesn't have any good bases in relationships, other than yet another queer-baited into hell.
Yep.
So really the theming in Cameron Bright's life is mild queer-baiting.
You know, it wouldn't surprise me if in her self-discovery journey she does realize that she's not at all straight.
And that's why she breaks up with Brendan.
I would love that journey for her. But yes, that is one reason I will somewhat lukewarmly defend this book. Another thing is, I actually do kind of find, because again, this is a meta retelling, really. I do find the analysis on the page of the play at least somewhat interesting. Because it does it acknowledges how polarizing this play is, and somehow kind of manages to go for an analysis that kind of is nuanced. That, at least in my experience, I haven't seen very often.
I mean, to do that, we kind of have to talk about Elle in more depth and what an awful friend
Yes,
she
we
is.
should. I mean, they're teenagers.
my stance on the metatextuality of it all is, first of all, you pulled that from the thing we can't talk about. The musical number shaped elephant in the room. Point two, that definitely felt like the authors jacking themselves off about their own fucking story.
Yeah.
Like, it was a little insufferable to read through. Like, I think that was the section that I, like, zoned the fuck out on the most, because I was like, oh my god, get through this. This book did not have to be 46 fucking chapters.
I will grant you it's a little self-indulgent, but as an aspiring author myself, I know I'm gonna get a little self-indulgent in my own writing. I'm sorry, y'all. You can zone out as much as you want, but you are the Catherine scholar here. Go ahead.
I think part of why this hit with me so hard is that I am generally more inclined to side with Elle in terms of a reading for the text, because another part of my play is it involves people repeatedly saying the name Kate to Catherine, and it's like a visible trigger for her. It's a traumatic thing because it's so conflated with her abuse at Petruchio's hands.
Right.
And in that respect, I totally get where Elle was coming from, and, you know, as Kyle has said, even in Shakespeare's day, this probably was not okay, the lengths to which Petruchio goes in harming Catherine, and I think maybe Elle read ahead, but Elle reminds me of a character in another book. I don't know if either of you have read Let's Talk About Love by Claire Kahn. It's a delightful little asexual romance, but there's a very toxic friendship in that one too that hit me very hard because I've been on both sides of that toxic friendship, and in Elle's case, she corresponds to the character Feeney, who has that same kind of domineering, my way or the highway, we do what I want. Because I think another element to is that Cameron is somebody who kind of, like, because of the terrible parents and especially the daddy issues, Cameron, despite the bitchy exterior, is accommodating to those she cares about.
Oh, yeah.
And so, the fact that Elle got so fucking pissed when Cameron pushed back even a little bit left an extremely sour taste in my mouth, because I have both been that person and I have been on the receiving end of that person, and it's stuff I regret and existentially haunts me at times when it probably shouldn't.
I mean, I definitely get it. To be completely honest, I have come to the conclusion no teenager knows how to be a good friend, because they just do not have the emotional maturity for the most part. It is a miracle if any childhood friendship lasts past high school.
My pack of friends have been friends since middle school, and we are so trauma bonded that we refuse to give each other up.
That is valid as hell. I respect it.
Yeah, which is why, again, I think that another thing that's holding Cameron back is submitting to the mortifying ordeal of I don't think Elle or Morgan know the full extent. Like, it is implied that Cameron has at least stayed on both of their couches when their mom was being, the worst.
Yeah.
Or, hooking up with her dad again. Put a pin in it. I have a rant about that, too.
Me too.
But I don't think Cameron ever told them why. I think she gave some dumbass excuse or, sort of a flimsy explanation that Morgan and Elle were willing to buy. I think Morgan knows more simply because Morgan strikes me as more emotionally intelligent.
She does.
And Morgan's also doing the actress thing, so...
Yeah, child acting, the year of our Lord 2019. Yeesh.
Poor thing.
Poor. So you get the general sense that, like, Morgan, maybe if she doesn't know more, she has more implicated knowledge. Like, she has a lot of assumptions that she's like, don't ask, don't tell. I think Morgan is very much a... Cameron or Elle had called Morgan in a pinch, being like, I need to crash on your couch right fucking now. Morgan is a no questions asked, absolutely, get over here. Want to talk it, we'll talk about it, but otherwise, we'll just leave it as is.
I mean, when the friendship breakup happens, she's just like, listen, I'm not getting in the middle of this, but you're both being stupid. That's really all she was willing to say.
Yeah.
Which, I don't know how I feel about that.
I think it's David Finchner's take on the strikes. No, Morgan. There's a side that's right and there's a side that's wrong.
I think it's we literally know nothing about these exterior characters other than Cameron's perspective, because again, this book is told through first person, which puts a lot of blinders on the situation, but I do understand...
That is true, especially as a teenager.
I do understand why it's being told in first person, and it's, why I will continue to defend the use of first person in novel telling, because fuck people who say that first person is useless. No, it isn't. Eat shit. But you get the general idea that they're never gonna be perfect people because they're fucking teenagers in LA, and though that's a species, there's a separate species that we we as near East Coasters will never fucking understand. But they were always a little dysfunctional, and again, I think if at any point Cameron had submitted to the mortifying ordeal of being known, it would have softened the ending, I think. Elle might have eventually come around more than she does in the end. That's Elle's big thesis statement at the end of the book, is like, you and I have been through hell or high water, and you're not even gonna fucking tell me what the fuck is going on. And I think, you know, it's both Cameron not knowing herself what the fuck is going on, because I don't think that she is prepared to admit that she actually likes this fucking group of weirdos, which but she's also not willing to admit to the group of weirdos. It's like Elle and Morgan are genuine friends to her, because they both have pre-assumptions about what Morgan and Elle are like based on the arbitrary popularity status that only exists in books and television.
In a normal book and TV situation, like, Elle would have started turning around and becoming friends with the weirdos after she did all their makeup.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we didn't have that.
Exactly.
Which, on the one hand, I respect, but also I hate it.
Yeah.
It's not satisfying. And the fact is, as realistic, quote-unquote, as it is, it's like, we are well past the point where you start injecting realism into this, guys.
The other fucking thing is, Elle has, like, all of these characters have their own fucking issues, and none of them talk to each other, because they're fucking teenagers, and they refuse to talk about any of their bullshit. Couldn't fucking be me.
Yeah.
All of my friends, to some extent, know all of my shit, and all of my shit, I know all the shit about all of my friends, because we live in an insular bubble, and like I said, our trauma bonded so far back because the American education system is hell. The smart thing this book fucking does is it basically opens with Cameron being like, I don't know why the fuck I'm popular. I think it's just because I have pretty privilege. Because Cameron, like,
that was pretty
she's
funny.
like, I'm a fucking scholarship kid. I'm basically being paid for by my deadbeat dad. I'm a track kid. Like, I am surrounded by kids whose parents are producers and hot movie stars and what have you. I think the only reason I'm popular is because I have pretty privilege. And I admit that that is a mild case of self-awareness we never fucking get. And I'm like, you know what? Yeah, there are certain kids in my high school who were just, like, considered popular because they were mildly attractive by the barometric of being 16-year-olds. Like...
That is fair. That definitely promised a much more self-aware narration than we got in the future.
Oh
but,
my god.
eh.
Does this mean we can finally get to the fucking winter formal thing?
Oh, God, hell! Okay, so the winter formal...
Okay, let's enroll in this clown college.
First of all,
Okay.
Is the biggest fucking case of if Cameron had submitted to the mortifying ordeal of being known, all of this would have been fucking solved.
Yeah, because here's the thing. So, as we've established, she's trying to get an internship with her father's company.
It's not going well.
She got resoundingly rejected. She screams at her father on the phone over it because at the end of the day, we know that this was just her ploy of trying to get him to finally love her. But it's never gonna happen, honey.
Gripping her by the shoulders and saying
unfortunately,
he will never love you.
it's okay, baby. It's okay. But unfortunately, the winter formal happens right after. She's gone with Brendan. You know, because they have built a relationship after...
We'll put relationship in... relationship
They
in
have
neon
their
air
love
quotes.
confession. I don't remember what chapter it was, but I messaged. I'm like, how are there 2 hours left in this book? They have done the love confession. And River said, ha ha ha, you fool.
Yeah!
He did the love confession. This is an important distinction.
Distinction. Yeah, so big fucking neon signs. Big fucking neon air quotes. So they get into the fucking car, and Cameron is visibly shaken. Cameron's whole thing is that she is very internalized with her emotion. If she cannot sprint them out, they do not exist. So she cops to crying for the first time, and she doesn't know how long. I think she mentions it in the book. I'm not gonna fucking dig the book out. Ew, gross.
Something like 45 minutes.
Yeah, she basically spent a good chunk of the time fucking sobbing. And instead of, like, calling Brandon and being like, hey, fucker, I can't do this tonight, bestie,
I'm not up for this.
she
come
says, no,
comfort me.
I agreed to do this. Because she's a planner and a control freak and a type A. And that's another reason I don't vibe with her very well, is I have a big, like, squick against type A's, because I am very much vibe and go with the flow, and type A's terrify me on levels I will never fully understand.
Aw.
Brendan rolls up, like expected, and she's been very visibly upset. Like, she's not even fixed her makeup, hasn't even pulled herself fully together yet, but she's like, we're fucking going. And Brendan spends the entire fucking car ride being like, hey, we don't have to do this. We cannot go. We can, like, figure something else out.
We don't have to go to a location where we will not be able to leave. The party is on a fucking boat.
Yeah, because that's the other thing. The thing is happening on a boat. Like, he's, like, very clearly like, you do not have to do this.
She didn't even have to tell him why she was upset. She could have just taken the offer.
Let's just stay home and work on making your game thingy.
Yeah, she doesn't.
Yeah,
she doesn't
she's
because
starting
she's
to
in
like
an
his game at this point, that was cute. I'm sorry, that was kind of cute.
Yeah.
He doesn't because she's in an emotional death spiral about never being actually loved and thinking that Brennan is just faking it for the sake of existence because she is essentially having a goddamn panic attack / PTSD flashback / God knows what fucking else because this chick definitely has mental issues she should be seeing a therapist about.
Listen, I didn't get the sense she thought that he was faking it. I was getting the sense that it's just like, this is not the real me. I'm the one faking.
It's a stupid, I'm faking it, I'm not worthy of it. It's just,
Exactly.
It's a stupid, but don't ask why.
She's in an emotional death role.
But don't ask why.
Yeah, she's in an emotional death role that can only be described as any teenager having a goddamn fucking breakdown. Never mind the fact that, again, her already fractured safety net is not talking to her. Because Elle, by this point, has had her blow up at her. She can't talk to Elle about this shit. She also can't talk to Morgan because Morgan's not taking side like fucking Switzerland. And I don't think Paige is going, or if Paige is going, you know, again, emotional death spiral. She refuses to submit to the mortifying ordeal of being known. Even though Paige would have understood, because Paige is the only one who knows about her fucking daddy issues.
Okay.
Anyway, but so she's not willing to bother Paige because, again, the mortifying ordeal being known, and Paige is with Andrew, so she's like, I don't want to, like, drag this one away from her. Anyway, Brendan does actually manage to get her to forget about it for more than 10 minutes, and it's great, it's cute, it's great, fun, fantastic. I thought we were going to get a great little moment about distracting from the pains and the ills of society, and then no. Cameron continues to be in an anxiety death roll. So she's like, I need to go cower in the bathroom and continue to have a fucking breakdown. And that's when she just...
And that's when she burns all the bridges.
Burning. This is we're lighting a tapestry and watching the whole thing go up. It was flimsily built and it didn't deserve to.
Just watch it all burn. And the worst part is, after she does that stupid bridge burning, we don't get to see the fallout. We don't get to see Paige actually talk to her and call her out on her shit.
Yeah, we do need to delve into exactly just how badly she burns this shit,
And the
though,
other
because
thing-
it'll really emphasize how unearned this ending was.
We also need to establish that this bridge burning is not the first time she's done it. It's the worst case of how she's done it, but it is not the first time she's done it. She did it earlier after a dad-induced breakdown to the track team captain, who she then apologized to and told her about Elle, in not as many words, Elle's whole thing with her boyfriend, which is another reason Elle got pissy at her, was the belief that she had told her in no uncertain words. Because again, they're teenagers and they're fucking shitty to each other. But, so this is like a defined thing about Cameron. This is, for lack of a better term, this might be one of Cameron's unhealthy coping mechanisms.
Oh yeah, it 100% is. Like,
her projecting and lashing out because she can't do anything fucking else because she's a 17, 18-year-old who is unfucking controlled can't be fucking controlled by anything in her fucking life. Because
like, early on in the story, she's all, I know the truth can hurt, even when you need to hear it. Which she does, referring to her mother. She just refuses to listen. Every time she hears she's unmotivated and flippant, she gives up a little bit more, and she also says people who give up don't deserve what they want. People who give up end up like my mother. But clearly every time she tries to tell her mother, it gets no results. At least when she is doing this to other people in her school, it does get something resembling results. Terrible results. But she is constantly lashing out at people, and she frames it as if she's just being honest, because she also picked this up from her father.
again, this is the whole, she is sympathetic but deeply unlikable and deeply annoying.
I can live with unlikable and annoying characters, especially when they are little children, but obviously your mileage may vary there. Anyway, getting to just how badly she burns the bridge, like...
This is not a bridge burning, this is a castle burning. This is dumping kerosene on the problem and lighting a match and then running away in terror. Because here's the thing. How does she get home? Yeah, I forget. She gets an Uber home, doesn't she? Because, like, that's the other thing.
She does get an Uber home, yeah.
Yeah. fucking Ubers in LA are goddamn
Oh
expensive.
god, that's so much money.
But anyway, there's a girl crying in there too, right? And she decides to just rip into her. Brendan happens to see it right after he had confessed his love for her, mind you.
The girl who she lashes out at is also someone she's already lashed out at before.
Exactly.
She's like, because
It was the girl that she broke up with the pervy guy
Yeah,
at
she's
the
like,
beginning of the
I told you.
book, wasn't it?
I told you that this was gonna go horribly fucking wrong, and
you're fucking
listening.
pathetic.
It's like classic. Someone ripped a couple '80s movies and smashed some bitchy Mean Girl speeches together.
And then Brendan comes in and he's just like, what are you doing? And she just tells him, this is who I really am, bitch, drink it up. Because, again, she doesn't feel worthy of him at this point. So she might as well break it off before it gets worse. And here's the thing. I could live with this. I could have lived with this if it weren't for the rushed way they brought them back together. And also, like,
That could have been the end of the book, and I would have been like, sure.
Like,
I know, man, that's like deeply unsatisfying, but like fucking vibe.
The sadder but wiser, there I go, for the grace of God.
you just mixed a whole bunch of
I was mixing cliches. I lost my train of thought.
Act 2 breakups are part and parcel for rom-coms. And I am one of those people who can enjoy a rom-com. And if...
I also like a rom-com. I usually hate an Act 2 breakup because I think it's frivolous and pointless.
Yes. Here's the thing. I'm very picky with my Act 2 breakups. I'm not saying don't do it, but you had better have a damn good reason, and you had better come up with a really good reason for them to get back together after that. This
happened in Act 3.
It does. It basically happened in Act 3. We have like maybe 40 pages left, so I'm just like, what? Oh, there is no way you're going to be able to bring them back together in a way that I'm going to rock with. And they didn't.
And then the stupid grand romantic gesture. I hate grand romantic gestures like that because they read as emotional blackmail.
Yeah, like, I'm not even going to try to defend it, even though, yes, the fact that it calls back to the fact that he would love it if someone had cosplayed one of his characters. But it's like, baby girl, that is not going to make all the horrible things you said to him okay.
And I think that's, again, this is the one time Brendan may actually have emotional intelligence to shoulder the burden of being a romantic interest. He does basically tell her that. He's like, bestie, we cannot keep doing this. I cannot take it. It's the only time in the book where I'm like, oh no, Brendan, are you actually a decent character? The fact that it's, 40 pages away from the ending, not a good sign. But I was like, oh, no, Brendan, are you actually kind of cute in this moment? You actually standing up for your wants and needs? Yeah, hell yeah, go for it. But then
it works, is the thing. And that pisses me off.
Then it works. Then the right amount of words and the right amount of convincing, and it's one last try, babe. I swear I won't fuck this up. And then we cut to 4 months later.
4 months later, and the most pointless, self-indulgent epilogue ever.
Because these writers have also written other books, including Always Never Yours, which sum up what little I gleaned from the preview at the end of the book, as well as just reading a summary. Basically, it is this girl who wants to get into college for directing, but she has to do one acting thing. So she plays Juliet, and incidentally, her whole thing seems to be she is always the person that someone dates before they meet their actual true love. As much as you can see that in high school. And those characters...
No, I know that plot. That's another rom-com plot. That's a struck we can't talk about it rom-com plot.
Oh my god. And those characters appear in this very self-indulgent epilogue. And I'm just like, did you really? This is the most awkward attempt at creating a shared universe I have ever seen in my life. And I watched insert multiple struck works here.
It's a choice. I didn't catch it because I have no interest in learning about these authors' further works. If anything, this book proved I should never worry at anything from these authors ever again.
I mean, even without you telling us what it was clear they were referencing something, because unless you're playing a D&D game, there is no reason to introduce 2 new characters this late in the story and have them dump that much of their backstory.
This was clearly for their fans.
Sure. And there's also the comp hat getting together of Paige and Andrew, which I'm like, at least you set it up, man. Then there was the weird jealousy from Brendan, which I'm like, bro, motherfucker, are we really doing this right fucking now,
You
bestie?
are not built to last, if that is the case.
No, nothing is. Oh god, because it's not jealousy at Andrew. It's like big brother overprotective vibes.
It's just like, we don't need that.
It's like it's younger brother protective energy of his sister. Like, if you fuck her over, I'll kill you. Which, you know, Andrew is a soccer player, and Brendan has only the advantage of height. They think it's implied that Brendan's like, what, 6'2" or something? He's tall. So it's this fucking book. My final verdict was never again, never without obligation.
I'm sorry, okay. This is the start of my apology tour, I guess.
Yeah, the ending was, we got a Harry Potter reference. This book was written in 2019. And there was a
fuck you, Joanne. Fuck you.
Ew.
Fuck you. Forever.
How are we making these references in the
2019, that was right before she had, like, the proper breakdown.
Okay, so
like, yes, she was already falling in favor, obviously, but 2020 was when she really blew up, the reason I remember that is because it was right around the height of the George Floyd protests and also Pride Month, so it's just like, part of what people were saying was just like, why are you saying this now?
Here's about all of the pop culture that gets referenced. It feels like it only gets thrown in there to make them seem young and hip and current. I'm like, you're just making this more dated and more inaccessible.
That Chris Pratt line,
I can guarantee you, in like 5 years, Blueberry Crumble Bottom is not going to be all that hot.
The thing is that a lot of it, because we are getting at this book from Cameron's perspective, a lot of the shit that the teen kids do is obscure by official title. Like, yeah, you can glean if you have any acknowledgement of the outside world what the fuck they're talking about. Like, you know, there's like a fucking weird board game, and there's like very clearly a setup for D&D. Like, Grant's probably their fucking DM. Or you get the idea that, like, oh, they're really into K-dramas and, you know, some fucking anime. But none of it is described in so much detail that you get, like, immediately like, oh, that is what property there was.
Probably.
Is there anything more to say about this goddamn book? Oh, I will say, I hated the heel face turn reveal of actually her mom was the good parent the whole time.
Yeah! Oh, yes! We need to talk about that shit! Oh my god!
Fucking bullshit!
You pulled that resolution out of your ass, because there is nothing about how the mother behaves that makes it make any sense.
That had been the route they had gone, where she just owns up to the fact that, like, yeah, he's a deep-fried Twinkie that I unfortunately keep indulging in, and I wish I wasn't this way, and everyone got therapy, then that would have been a better ending!
I could have rocked with that.
It would have been good for... It wouldn't have been good for Cameron, but it would have been a more satisfying ending.
Would have made a lot more sense.
This fucking sucked. This sucked, and I hated it.
We should get into that.
So, after the shitty dad does the most shitty of shitty things and Cameron implodes her life, the mom's like, and she's trying to take it out on her mom's like, yeah, actually your dad did ask me to marry him when he found out I was pregnant with you. But I said no because I realized that would be a bad relationship to be stuck in forever, and I didn't want to subject you to that.
Yeah, and keep in mind, Cameron has been under the impression that her mother keeps father in her life because she thinks she can eventually convince him to marry her. And so to find out that all this time she knew keeping him in their lives was terrible, because let's keep in mind, Cameron's dad is not just terrible to Cameron, he is even worse to her mother. Like, it's just constantly berating her. It's not even like he's trying to light a fire under her ass. He's just tearing her down because he is a fucking bully.
And also, he is basically expecting Cameron to parent her mother.
Yeah, 100%.
Which is another point in his dick book.
Yeah, Cameron is absolutely parentified in this thing.
So yeah, he's just a dickhead, and he sucks.
He sucks, and I really wish there was more
Correct.
comeuppance for him.
I do, however, the one good thing about this ending, the mediocre light in this hellhole, is the actual conversation with the personal assistant.
Receptionist.
Yeah,
that was nice. I actually quite like that.
Of like, hey, I'm sorry I was being a dick to you. I needed to get through to my dad. And she's like, yeah, your father's a dickhead. And I'm so sorry he's like that to you. But also, I have connections. Do you want to use them? Because he's clearly not going to help. And she's like, yeah, actually I would. That'd be nice. Like, that's some Nepo baby bullshit, but that's also, like, just a smart... That's like, just a
that was
solid,
nice. That was nice.
Solid. And I'm like, oh, that's like the one light in this hellscape.
Like, that was a nice part of the ending, because it's just like, damn, if only every screamed at receptionist would get
Her
that
name's
apology.
like, what, Kristen? Or something?
Yeah,
Shout out to
something like
Kristen.
that.
She didn't deserve
Something
anything
like-
this book threw at her.
And she doesn't deserve her boss, and if she killed him, we'd all be on her side.
Correct. He had it coming.
He had it coming. Like, fuck this guy.
And then he didn't get it.
And Brad gets to go off to have that internship. It's so fucking gross.
Yenning's in hell. This book was in hell.
Yeah, I'm absolutely going to write copious amounts of fanfiction of this man dying in terrible ways.
This book does not warrant the effort of fanfiction. I'm not gonna write fanfiction to fix this. No! This book feels like it would spit in my face if I told it I wrote fanfiction.
Fine.
Cameron Bright does not deserve fanfiction because I don't think she'd appreciate it.
Oh well. Again, in the lukewarm defense of this book, again, I actually do kind of like what it had to say regarding how Catherine is portrayed in the play. The argument can absolutely be made that Catherine is kind of a terrible person in the beginning of the play. That does not mean she deserves what came to her, though. And I do think there is something to be said about the commentary that a lot of the times, if you are not the perfect angel, your abuse is definitely brushed over a lot more. And that definitely can apply to this play. I could definitely see someone doing a read in that, yeah, sure, it's terrible, but she also kind of deserves it. I could see some dickhead doing that. Catherine has her flaws. Why do they only ever earn her isolation and pain? Catherine deserves to be held accountable for the horrible things she does. But underneath the nasty exterior, it's possible she's a person and not just a problem. A person who needs to change, but deserves a chance. And of course, it does go on to basically having Cameron kind of realize it's not that she needs to change per se, because just because you start being kinder doesn't mean you fundamentally change as a person. If that makes sense. And I do kind of, I do think that's actually kind of an interesting point of view to take.
I mean, I don't think it's...
I don't know.
it's really applicable to... I think that's a terrible essay to be writing about Taming of the Shrew. It's there more to facilitate Cameron's development than it is to reflect an actual high school paper would be written.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, that's...
Absolutely.
Yeah,
but
that's the
honestly, high
author's
school's
is-
bullshit anyway, so who cares?
It's very, very much like, you don't sympathize with Cameron out of the gate, you're fucked. This book is not going to be a fun read to get through. Like,
Yeah.
I think I mentioned it. If I was not reading this out of obligation, I would have DNF'd it after chapter 10. I was bored. You know, it's a slowish burn, but it doesn't... It burns, and then it peters out. Like...
Yeah, there was no need for that Act 3 breakup.
They lit the fuse, and the fuse sort of tapers and tapers and goes out in places, and they have to relight it, and
Yeah.
it tapers and it tapers and it goes out again, and they have to relight it, and then all of a sudden they're dumping kerosene on the problem, and the whole thing goes up. They go scorched earth at the last minute, and they expect wildflowers to grow in the aftermath. And there just isn't enough seeds planted for that growth to happen. And so you're just left standing in an ashen field, expected to be content. And, unfortunately, no. No, I'm not content to stand in an ashen field. In fact, if they had gone the dark route of, like, you know, that... If they had gone a strictly drama route of, like, wanting to make this a more dramatic book than it was, or if they wanted to, you know... I live in film brain. If they wanted to make this, like, a, you know, one of those dramas that gets, like, a lot of, like... Is maybe not audience loved, but, like, Ellie would love this movie, where it's, like, got a great score and a terrible audience score... They would have ended it.
Yeah.
It's not gay enough for Ellie,
No,
though.
they would have made it gay, and then they would have ended it at Winter
You
War.
know what? You're not wrong.
That's the indie film fest
It
darling
would
of
be.
this version of this story.
I am intrigued by this alternate universe version of it that you've come up with.
I have a tendency to do that, where I'm like, here's the alternate universe version of this story, which is infinitely better.
You do, and I love you for it. I do genuinely love you for it. But yeah, even me, the sole defender, this is a deeply flawed book. There's so much wrong with it. But I guess I was just too fucking invested in seeing Cameron get better to completely give up on it.
I don't think she got better, is the other thing. Because she's still not doing the work of submitting to the mortifying ordeal of being known. If this book had made an offhanded comment that she was actually getting therapy, I think I would have been more content with the
Oh,
ending.
absolutely. This definitely should have
Every
ended...
fucking character in this book needs goddamn therapy, and they're never going to get it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, if this had ended with her getting therapy, I would definitely agree. I agree with you. She needs therapy badly.
Also,
She and her mother
before
both need therapy. Considering how I have met very few people who actually genuinely like this play, so what the fuck, guys?
I think if they did, you'd have to, kind of tap them upside the head going, "Por qué? And should I be worried
Why
about
does this
you?"
play endure?
Well, speaking as someone who's done the retelling, it's more fun to fuck around with a flawed as fuck source material.
Oh yeah,
Like,
from a retelling standpoint.
From a
I
retelling
will
standpoint,
not
when something's already objectively controversial, you can take a more concrete stand. Like, as opposed to a Midsummer Night's Dream, it's really hard to have a take on a Midsummer Night's Dream that isn't just, this play is fucking funny. Yeah, but this story endures because we have assigned this cultural value to Shakespeare. And thus it becomes an easy target because, A, it shows us one of the ways that Shakespeare is flawed in a more accessible way, as opposed to if you have to try and take down Merchant of Venice or Othello or even Titus Andronicus, or The Tempest, which have much more heavy things. There's a much clearer through line comedically, I think, to abuse is not fucking funny, so how do we fix this? And the answer is you put it in a play within a play, like Cole Porter did, or you do Struck Work number 257, I forget which number it was, or you do what I do and just make it about Catherine's trauma.
You turn them into tsunderes who can't communicate their feelings. That's really all the shorthand you need to make it slightly more palpable, because people are willing to fucking willing to put up with it. The fact that there isn't some form, I will eat my hat. I don't have a hat readily available, but I will eat this blanket if there isn't already some anime retelling, because you could easily strap a lot of archetypes, healthy or not, onto this sort of retelling. I don't think it's romantic enough for most anime retellings, because most anime retellings tend to lean on the more romantic one, but I think the fact that there isn't kind of mildly impressive. Anyway, we're getting off topic. Wrap this up and then we'll count pens.
Yeah, you are right in that there is something to be said about how a work being flawed being the reason it endures, because everybody wants to put their own spin on. It's like, how do we fix this?
Women need to fanficify the thing they forgot to put the good in.
Yeah, basically. Which is kind of why I'm almost tempted to write fanfiction about this very book. So the cycle continues.
All right, pen count.
How much do I owe the Creator Fund?
What is it, $1 a pen?
Yeah, and that's not counting the ones we've already done in previous episodes. I need to fix this.
Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. You owe them $11.
Okay, cool, thank you. We're gonna make this an established thing now until the strike is over. Thank you, River.
Of course. Anytime I'm on the episode, you can just tell me to count pens.
Thank you. All right, who has stuff to plug, speaking of money?
My podcast, 6DOSW, is coming back very soon. It's rebranding into something that is strike-proof, that also lets us vent some of our frustrations. Watch that space. I hope you guys are really gonna like it. And you can also follow me on the various social medias. My handle is femfictional. And in addition to the $11 Jazz is giving, please keep supporting the Entertainment Community Fund, both the SAG-AFTRA strikes and the writers' strikes and all your other local strikes. Solidarity forever.
Solidarity forever. Anyway, I gotta sing in every episode, guys.
I am easily found on the Twitter, because I refuse to call it the other thing, at Dreams Rebel, where you can find me elsewhere on other platforms, but that's really the only one I fucking use. You can find me on Sam's podcast as part of that revamp, where hopefully I still have to figure out how to do the fucking southern accent.
Same here. I look forward to you rescuing my runaway pup princess.
Dobbin, it's gonna be so much
Spoilers.
fun. Spoilers. I live in this podcast's walls permanently, so,
You can't live in here. I live in here. Who's paying rent?
We live here rent-free.
I'm not a fucking landlord. Anyway, I just realized how funny this bit is going to be when we finally do a cask of Amontillado. I believe that is a good place to end. And as always, you can find me on Twitter, Tumblr, and TikTok under Faye Riviera. And this podcast also has a Twitter account. under IER Podcasts. Hope you enjoyed this little belated back to school special, and remember, stories gain power in each retelling. Come cage Will to bed, we three are married, but you two are sped. 'Twas I won the wager, though you hit the white, and being a winner, God give you good night. Now go thy ways, thou hast tamed and cursed a shrew. 'Tis a wonder by her leave she will be tamed sound. God, this play is terrible.